everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Park Lane Podcast with myself, Luke, and well, hopefully in the next few minutes, Dave. But let's keep going with ourselves for the time being, and you may be enlightened with Dave's presence ever so shortly. Before we do get going, as always, please do make sure you're clicking the like button. Make sure you're subscribing, and if you're on any kind of podcast platform, make sure you're leaving us a 5-star review. Perfect. So let's see who's in the chat. If you are in the chat, don't forget to get your comments in. Obviously, if you're watching on podcast platform or you're watching in the future, please do make sure you're leaving us a nice comment with your thoughts as well. Jay said in the chat, good evening. Good evening, Jay. Today's show is going to be all about the Europa League Final. Wednesday night in Bilbao. I'm excited just thinking about it. Just talking about it, I'm excited. But Wednesday night in Bilbao, we will face Manchester United for the Europa League Final, or the Europa League Trophy, whatever you like to call it. So today's going to be all about that. I'm really not going to discuss too much to do with the Aston Villa game, to be honest, because we all know what we're here for today. Stephen said, "Here we go. Come on, you Spurs." Stephen, where are you watching the game on Wednesday? That's what I need to know. Are you going to be with Wes? Where are you going to go? I want to know where everybody's watching the final, actually, because obviously, as everyone knows, I'm up in Scotland. I was going to plan on going to the stadium to watch the game, because I looked. Those that watch this podcast for a long time, I did actually say a few months ago that if Spurs got to the final, I was going to go to Bilbao. But what happened was at the time, I didn't book the flights because of a bottle job. And then obviously we all know what happened with the prices and everything else. So I was going to go to the stadium, but it looks like that's where Stephen and Wes are going to be. Lovely. Go to the stadium. That's nice. I was going to go, but I don't know if you saw it, but when they announced that you could go and they weren't going to put the screens in the middle of the pitch, I thought, what's the point? Because I felt like the screens that they had around the outside were just going to be too small to watch a live game of football. And then obviously I didn't book it. And then I already made other plans to go. So I'm going to go to a local pub with some friends. And then obviously they announced they were going to change that and put the screens around the outside. So look, it should be an amazing atmosphere at the stadium. So if you are going to the stadium, have a great time, because some atmosphere, especially when we win the Europa League. And I always say when, because for months, genuinely months on Twitter, if you don't follow me, Luke_Park Lane, you can. But for months on Twitter, I've been banging on about Ange in the Europa League. And I've always said throughout every tweet, I've said when Ange wins the Europa League, or when he wins the Europa League. So I've been manifesting it for months now. And Wednesday for me can't come soon enough. I'm starting to get that unsure feeling in my stomach, which you get about Spurs in these big games. But we've just got to keep believing that this squad can get it done. Let's quickly mention the Aston Villa game, even though we really don't want to. So obviously, on Friday night, which is the game moved from today, so that us and Manchester United can have the same amount of preparation, we actually get about 15 minutes or half an hour extra. So everything's on our side for Wednesday night. But we did lose 2-0 to Aston Villa away. It was just such a poor game, wasn't it? And this is kind of why I wanted to mention the game, because I want to know everyone's thoughts, who's watching tonight. Surely when you want to prepare for a final, and I've been backing Ange for a long time, even though it's hard to do it at some point, surely the best preparation is to give your best players the game. Some of these players won't have played since away in against Bodo Glimt. Now they've got to come in and be fresh for a 90-minute final. I just want to know everyone's thoughts. Is that something you're worried about? Because for me, that's not good preparation for a final, to just be 2 weeks since you last played, and then straight into the game. So it's going to be really interesting to see what people think on that one, because I'm going to be interested on Wednesday to see how we start. How we start is going to be crucial. We need to get into this game fast, because what could happen is the game could have passed us by before we're even into it. So to give those players 2 weeks pretty much off, I mean, some of them played, right? Solanke came on, Bentancur played for some of the games, and so players did play. For example, on back four, Vicario didn't play on Friday. Badoggi obviously didn't even travel, nor did Romero, nor did Van de Ven. Porro didn't start. And so for me to have those players out for the entire game, it seems absolute madness to do that. But I mean, if on Thursday morning or late Wednesday night, we're talking about Spurs lifting the Europa League, then it's absolutely genius, isn't it? But for me, it's so much of a gamble that's the only part that I'm scared about on Wednesday night. Like Manchester United, we should be beating them. Right, we've beaten them 3 times already this season. I don't get or buy into any of this hoodoo like, oh, we've beaten them 3 times, so therefore now is the time we're going to lose in the final. I don't buy into this like Manchester United are, veterans as a club in terms of like European trophies and winning silverware. But the players that are there now aren't. We probably got as many winners as they do. And so for me, we've got to believe, and that's the one thing I think is really big when it comes to Ange Postecoglou that he brings into this team, is that winning mentality. And we can push past the part that we have to forget about everything that's happened this season, and that's what's been annoying me a little bit online this week, has been kind of how people are still talking about Ange and still talking about how they don't like the style of football that he plays and still talking about 20-odd games we've lost this season. Everything has to go away. We have to have only one focus and one focus as a football club, and that's winning the Europa League. After that, we can discuss it until the cows come home. I'm more than happy to discuss all of that. But, to see some of our fans already talking, I heard things like the Europa League isn't big enough competition, therefore it's like winning the Carabao Cup, doesn't mean anything. I've seen some crazy comments this week, and from my side, we have to. Every single fan has to get behind this football club, and we have to, to really, really push on, because this could be something special on Wednesday night. But we have to do it together. Having Ange in, I said this a while ago actually, that if I wanted a manager in a one-off game, I would want Ange Postecoglou in it. The one thing we cannot deny is he's won a lot of trophies in his tenure at different clubs, and so to have him in the final, I think is going to be work in our favour. But only time will tell. Right, let me welcome in Dave. Dave is here, so I'll just bring him into the studio. Dave, how are you?
What's happening? Sorry, it's been my daughter's birthday party today, so it's been absolutely bonkers, mate.
Sorry, mate, I've just been rambling as I did last week to myself, pretty much. But no, there are a few people here actually. I'll read this. Jay said, "I hope that we win. To be honest, as we worked really hard to get this far, our ideal summer transfer window should be players like Eze and Buemo. Thoughts? Any players you would add?" I think
Eze's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I think what we'll do is once we get through the season, is we'll start to talk about who we should bring in, players that we should target and things like that, because I really want to focus today, if we can, on the Europa League final. James also said, I feel like now that if we sack Ange, and when Glasner was on the Spurs list, he definitely won't leave now. It's interesting. I tell you what, we will definitely discuss that. We'll definitely discuss managers, because I think that's integral to the part of the Europa League final. Quickly though, whilst we just finish up on Aston Villa, we were terrible, and so were our predictions. I mean, nobody actually predicted anything apart from me, because I was the only one here last week. But 1 second, my laptop's.
I best be showing top of this table now, mate.
Well, so these were the scores from the Aston Villa game. I went with the 2-2 draw. I was the only one that actually predicted. The wheel predicted Winnie 1-0 Spurs win. David 0-0 draw. Callum a 1-0 Spurs win, and Wes a 2-2 draw. Nobody got any points. So going into the last game of the season, Brighton next week, it sits like this. Dave and Winnie still neck and neck on 19. The only person that can catch them and even just draw level will be Wes on 16. Callum is on 9 and I am on 8.
I think we all agree that I win by default, right?
Yeah, we can discuss that for
But
sure.
actually picking scores.
Yeah, exactly. Reigning champions absolutely failed miserably. I'm going to blame the fact that we've lost so many games, and I don't predict us to ever lose. So, anyway, all to play for in the last game of the season next week. But Dave, I want to discuss first of all. You doing anything exciting for the game on Wednesday night?
Probably not, mate. To be honest, you know what I'm like in big games. I get nervous, man. I hate it. I feel uncomfortable. I get antsy, so I'll probably just watch it at home with a couple of Guinnesses, mate. That's probably going to be what I'm going to get up to. But look, I think it's going to be an interesting one. I don't know if you want to talk about that yet. Are we getting into that now? Are we or can I go into that yet?
I've got a whole list of questions to ask you, mate. To be honest,
Right.
I'm tell you what, I'm going to go and watch it at the pub with a few people who are like neutrals, and then one other person who's a United fan who I don't know, but he's like friends with the neutral person I'm going to watch the game with. So it's going to be really interesting to
two of the
see.
Fat Pod lads are Man United fans, aren't they? So,
Oh yeah,
Rossi and Indy are Man United fans, so it's going to be fun.
Spank them.
Hope so.
I know, yeah. I tell you what, let's get into that because that's one thing that I was kind of discussing in my rambles before you arrived, and that was about the preparation for the final. So the last time that probably the team who will start on Wednesday night will have played, most of them will have been 2 weeks prior against Bodo Glimt away. Because we had the game, Crystal Palace game, where Andrew rotated, and then we had obviously Aston Villa on Friday night, where again he rotated. What do you think about this as preparation for the final?
Well, I think if you look at Spurs season as a whole, we are the most injury-prone team there is. Whilst I think it will be great to have these players getting minutes before the final, the amount of injuries we keep picking up, I don't want to risk that. I don't want to. If Van der Ven gets injured, we won't win. Simple as that. He is key to the way we play and how we play. So I think, and believe it or not, and it's been a long time since I said this, is doing the right thing. And he is rotating and giving other players games because you look at the other day, Sarr come off injured. It's like we keep picking up these injuries. Kulu's now missing the final. So the last thing we need is a Van der Ven or a Romero, or Solanke or someone like that picking up a serious injury and they don't play in the final. Getting Son minutes is important. But personally, I wouldn't start Son in that sense. But what do you think about the whole Son thing? Do you think he's a starter or not?
Do you know what? That's something I tweeted about the other day, but I didn't actually write it down as a question, so I'm glad you brought that up, mate, actually. So give me 1 second. Sorry. For some reason, the sunlight in this room is just absolutely incredible this time of day. So I just can't see me otherwise.
I'm still here. I'm just moving the chair, so I'm just going to turn the video off while I do, but I'm still here.
That's right.
I can still hear you.
I would start Sonny, and I'd like to know everyone who's watching, who would you start on the left-hand side? I would start him only for the reason that what you want in these big games is you really need those experienced players. And my worry is that if you go with a Richarlison, he doesn't offer enough. If you go with a Tell, he's too young and too inexperienced, in my opinion, to really be able to grasp the game. We need somebody who can get him stuck in first minute. Look, Son hasn't been good enough this season. He hasn't been. But I think, when you go into these games, it's a bit like, do you remember the Champions League final? We were like, oh, should Harry Kane play in that match? And then because he just come back from injury. And I still think we should have started Llorente, personally. But, you can't, if you don't play Harry Kane in that final and
you lose.
Then you get
everyone says you should have started Kane. Why would you not? But then if you do start him, you lose anyway. People are still going to say you should have started, Lucas or whatever else, or that's just the way it goes. But the reality of it is, the way I've always looked at this, right, in this way is, let's say for example, Real Madrid are in the Champions League final, and they're playing Liverpool. Mbappe and Salah are both just coming back from injury. Do you think they leave them on the bench?
No, but I also think Harry Kane barely got a touch, I think, in that Champions League final. And for me, you have to look at what assets you can have, and playing like a Llorente type player in that game could have offered a bit more ability to hold up the ball and bring in players like Son and so on. But anyway, we're not talking about
No,
2019 Champions League final. Talking about Wednesday night. So let's talk about our front three. Who do you play? If you don't want to start with Son, who do you play in that front three?
Well, I know you don't like him, but I like Tell. The reason I like Tell is because defensively United are vulnerable. They play three at the back. He loves that 3-4-3 formation, Amarin, doesn't he? So I think someone like Tell, if Sonny's fit, then properly fit, you play Sonny but he's been so poor this year. Well, I think Tell worries defenders. He makes defenders panic. He gets them on the back foot. If they're playing these high wing backs or whatever else, he's going to be able to make sure they're staying back, if that makes sense, as opposed to attacking us the other end. I just think that, in my opinion, you play Solanke through the middle, obviously with his hold-up play, and you play players playing off him. You stick Tell on the left or Son on the left. But realistically, personally, I start Tell. As much as I love Son, he's been absolutely shocking this year. And I know people don't like him, but he always has a goal in him. Brennan Johnson.
Yeah, I think Brennan Johnson has to start on that.
Because he doesn't do much, but he scores goals or assists a goal. But his overall play isn't great. But if he can get us a goal, then why wouldn't you?
I think if you play Brennan Johnson, he does absolutely nothing apart from he could score. That's it. There's going to be no defensive work. There's going to be nothing. He's not going to offer anything running at players. But the only thing he'll offer is the fact that he can get in that position and he can score. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question, Luke? Just really quickly.
Yeah, go for it.
How do you feel about the fact that we've beaten them 3 times this season and we're heading into a fourth? United always seem to get up for these big European games. Are you concerned with the fact that we have beaten 3 times convincingly a couple of times, and now we're heading into a game that United's history would say that they should manage and get through well? Are you worried the fact that can we make it 4?
Yeah, do you know what? I actually mentioned this, funnily enough, right at the very start, in my ramblings. But I'm glad that you asked, because it is a question that I do want to discuss. Personally, I think that you have to have a mindset that's I put it this way: Manchester United, as a club, have won multiple European titles, right?
Yep.
But this Manchester United team, the players within it haven't.
Yep.
Right. So therefore, they're no different to us in terms of being able to win. It's only a club thing. Do you get what I mean?
Well, they won the FA Cup a couple of years ago. Last year, actually, wasn't it?
Yeah, fair enough. But I mean, when you talk about European titles and things like that, I just think that if you start with that mentality, you're already going to lose. Yes, of course. In my brain, at times, we've beaten them 3 times this season. Of course, we're losing the final to them. I think I actually said that on the show. I'd rather have got Bilbao because we've beaten Man United already so many times that
Bilbao at home, mate. Sod that.
Yeah.
In a final,
I don't know. United smashed about 4 past them, didn't they, the other day?
Yeah, but in a final at home, it's a different story, isn't it?
Yeah. So personally, I think obviously any Spurs fan would have that in them, but you have to go. We can, the players themselves have to go. Of course, we can beat this team. We've beaten them 3 times already this season. But it's going to be down to that team talk. It's going to be down to how, and I think we have to put this aside. And I want to discuss this actually. Is a couple of things. Do you think Ange is the right? Because I've seen people say on Twitter "Oh, weeks ago we should have sacked him before the semi-final, before the final." How do you feel about Ange, regardless of what he's done this season, leading them out into the European final?
He deserves it. He got us there. Simple as that. Yeah, the league form has been. I mean, I saw a stat and it made my eyes water. It said we are the team with the worst record and worst points total that's not been relegated in Premier League history. That's shocking. But if we finish 17th but we win the Europa League, I couldn't care less. You know how I backed down from the beginning and I fell off and I was like, you know what, I can't. It needs to go. But when he has navigated us through the, all the talk about going to Frankfurt and how difficult it's going to be, picking up a win there, going to Bodo Glimt home ground where they got such a phenomenal record. The way he set up the team there was spot on. It was perfect. So he has navigated us through this European competition. It's just like Mourinho deserved a shot at the League Cup final. He deserves his shot at the Europa League final. Do I think he should be our manager next season? No. I think if he wins the Europa League, I think it should be a little bit of a handshake. Look, thanks very much. You've got us over the line. It's something important. But we can all agree that the league form, losing 20 games or 21 games is not acceptable. And then both of us move onto brighter things, because I don't want Tottenham to get into a Man United Ten Hag situation next year where we back Ange in the transfer market, spend lots of money, and then come mid October, November time, we're scrambling around trying to poach managers out of other clubs. So realistically, I like Ange as a man. I like him as a manager. I think he says it as it is and he talks straight. Do I think the Premier League is probably a step too far for him? Yes. That's not diminishing him. The European Cup, the Europa League is not the Champions League. The teams are not as big or as good as the Champions League, but he deserves his shot because he's got us this far.
It's madness, right? Because I've heard this a few times this week, and I find that absolutely insane, right? That we even have the audacity to say such claims, that and it's not, right? The teams aren't as good, right? That's just how life works. But as a team that have never, not won a European trophy for 41 years, for us to say, oh, well, it's not as good as the champ. We're already putting dampeners on it. Do you get what I mean?
No. Yeah, that's not what I'm doing. What I mean in terms of, I'm just talking about Ange's ability as a manager in as a whole. I always thought Ange and Tottenham was a perfect fit, because he could bring that winning mentality. If Ange does one good thing at Tottenham and he gets us over the line to win a trophy, I'm not. He probably would deserve to stay for a little bit longer, but when you do, you can't just look at it with blinkers on and say we won the Europa League, so it's great. So let's forget about the league, because you can't, because our league form is horrendous. To lose 20 games or 21 games already this season with one game left, that's appalling. So you have to look at it as a whole. You know what? You've done an amazing job in Europe. You've done really, really good. Your tactics have worked, but we have had a lot of injury problems, but when the injury problems are over, we're still having problems. Do you see what I mean? So it's just more of a case of what I'm saying is I'm not saying Ange is not a good manager, because he is, but sometimes there's leaps that are just a little bit more than you, if that makes sense, more than your ability. I just feel like maybe the Premier League and his tactics and the way teams set up, does he have that ability to be able to adjust and adapt and to change to suit the league that we're in, because he only wants to play one way, which is fine. But when teams learn to play that way, you need to have a backup.
Interesting, isn't it? Because we have had a backup in the Europa League. And
this is what I mean. This is what I don't understand. Why are we having the backup and changing our tactics and system in the Europa League, but we're not doing it in the Premier League? Is it just more of a case of he's looked at the league and gone, do you know what, it's done. We've got to put all our eggs in this basket and try and go and win this. And if that is the case, then fair enough, give him next year.
I know, but that's the one thing, isn't it? Like, he'll never say it, because part of me just then when you were talking was like, oh, do you know what I'd love? If he wins the Europa League and then he turns around and says, do you know what? Like, I knew the league was gone back when we couldn't get top half, or we couldn't get whatever it is, right? I had to focus everything there was on the Europa League, right? Which would be fair enough. I don't think he would say that, but if he did, right? What blows my mind, and it still does to this day, is if that is the case, which is fair enough, then why have we not tried those tactics in the league, right? Because what you'd want is, if those tactics are working, you'd want to try and do it all of the time. And that's the only bit that kind of, and how much
the standard of opposition isn't if we were, I'll be delighted if we win the Europa League, but the Europa League teams, 90% of them teams are not as good as most of the Premier League teams. That's a fact. You look at people like Crystal Palace and teams like that, even the lower echelons of the league, they are better than a lot of the teams in the Europa League. That's just the way it is. So is it more of a case of that the teams are better and the managers are better in the Premier League, so they set up better to match Ange. Whereas in the Europa League, he can afford to make these tactical adjustments. I think he should have tried it. I've said it all along. He needs to make changes. He needs to adjust his tactics. I can't understand why he hasn't. I personally think there's an agreement in place for him to leave at the end of the year, no matter what. If we win, even if we win the Europa League, and I think he's just more of a case gone. You know what? I don't care about that. I'm going to continue to play the way I want to play, but I'm going to make sure we try and win this.
Do you think? Do you ever see a time where he wins the Europa League and he walks away? I put it on TikTok actually. Don't know if it was today or a couple of days. I mentioned it last week. Do you see a part where he says, "Do you know what? Fuck you all. Like, I've done what I said I would do. I'm going."
I don't think you want to, because he's a bit of a strikes me as like a proud man. Does that make sense? He wants to. Yeah, I have won this. I've won in my second season, like I always do. And in my case, it'll be more of a case of he still wants to constantly prove people wrong. That's the type of man he strikes me as. So
just in the way he's been treated, that's
Yeah, but he's. Have you read his book? Ever read his book?
I've read some of it, not all of it.
He talks about the fact in his book that he's always treated that way. No matter, in every job he goes to, he's always treated that way. He doesn't always have a good relationship with the press because he's got, he doesn't always look at the floor during interviews and things like that. But I think it's more of a case of I don't think he'd want to walk away from the job. I feel like he's got unfinished business. I think he doesn't want to leave a club where we are in the league, because what's that going to do to his reputation? Yeah, he won us the European trophy, but he left us 17th in the league. You see what I mean? I think he's too proud for that.
Do you think there's been a conversation between Daniel Levy and Ange Postecoglou already?
100%. There's probably been multiple conversations.
I mean one where he says, "This you are gone regardless of what happens, but I'll support you. I want you to win it, but it's not going. We're not going to continue next season."
That's a difficult one, because I remember someone close to the club said Daniel Levy came out and said it'd be really difficult to sack him if he did win the Europa League, which is a fair statement. It would be difficult to sack him. I think
he would be the third manager. Let's get this right: the third manager ever to win a European trophy at Spurs. I mean, it'd be difficult to sack someone at that point, surely. But
it is difficult. But that's the thing, mate. But if we win the Europa League, here's a scenario for you, right? When Ange first came, the style of football we played and the way we played is so different to how we play now. That aggressive front-paced football. So he has changed, but he's changed in a weird way. And I made this point a few weeks ago on the pod, where we don't attack and we don't defend anymore. We do nothing. We're just emotionless. Whereas when he first came, it was all out attack. Let's go for it. Let's go for it. Let's go for it. And that led to some really exciting games, some really exciting results. And it was good fun. And we were on a roll. I think Gary O'Neill figured out how we played one game and came out in an interview and said, "You just got to do this against Tottenham." Then everyone started doing that, and I think he panicked a little bit and went off his blueprint a little bit. Whereas I personally believe that he is the right style of manager. It's just whether he's too stubborn to be able to put that into practice and do it effectively. The problem is Tottenham is the way we are run. We have a chairman who won't necessarily give you all you want in the transfer market. Can Ange really do a good job when he doesn't get all he wants, when he doesn't get every player that he feels he needs for his system? I don't know, mate. Like I said to you, for me, if he wins the Europa League, I think he should go anyway, and I think we should look to rebuild. But I wouldn't be against him staying and seeing how it goes. But here's a scenario I wanted to put to you: if he does win the Europa League and we lose 3 out of the first 5 games, what then?
Yeah, I get it. I do get it. As I said, I'm torn because I want it to work out for him, but I also think that if he wins the Europa League, it still works out for him, in a certain sense, right? But I still believe that they want Mauricio Pochettino. I don't know why. I just think that's just there's so much pressure on Daniel Levy. There's so much pressure on the board. Like, I think this would be the thing that would save it for them. But I also don't see us going and getting him before the World Cup. So that's why I've always said it along. But I believe if he loses on Wednesday, he's gone, regardless.
Yeah, I think he'll be gone Wednesday night if he loses Wednesday.
But if he wins, as you say, it's so hard to know what.
Do you know what? Speaking of Pochettino, and you are right, it does make me wonder that if Daniel Levy, if he wins on Wednesday, we'll give him a year.
Yeah.
And then wait for Poch.
It's the end of his contract then as well.
Yeah,
It's
but
like you want
what
Daniel
it does
Levy,
do is
right?
if he does sack him at the end of the season, and he's still got eyes on Pochettino, he can't really go out and get an Iriola or a Glasner
Yeah.
or Marco Silva, because he's got to give them long term building projects. So it's more of a case of, is he looking to go, okay, you know what, we win the Europa League, we keep Ange. If it doesn't really work, after 9 months, we'll sack him and get in Mason to the end of the season. You see what I mean?
Yeah,
Maybe
exactly.
he's thinking along those
No.
lines.
And the thing is, right, is I'm thinking at it as it from a Daniel Levy point of view, right, and a financial point of view, because we all know that's what he loves, right? And his
Yep.
contract ends at the end of next season. It would cost a lot less to sack him if he had to sack him later on, or if he just says, "Do you know what, we're not going to renew the contract. Thank you very much." And then it just saves more money to then to go out and get Pochettino and whatnot. It's just, I don't know. I can just foresee that happening, but I think it's all dependent on Wednesday. If he loses, then he's gone regardless, and I just don't know who we go and get. I mentioned earlier, actually, it looks like I've seen that Will Still has left his club, and but I see it's because of, for personal reasons, because of
Yeah.
I think his wife's got cancer. I believe I read something like this on
Yeah.
online, so I'm not 100% sure. So apologies if I've got that wrong, but it looks like someone like Southampton is gonna look to go for him. I mean, it's very very early for us to go for somebody like that, but I mean, if we want to go for like a project manager, you need to be able to back it. He would be. I've seen when he was on Sky Sports as well, actually talking about tactics and stuff. I thought he was absolutely sensational, and I think he's someone that Spurs will get in about 10 years' time, and
Yeah.
will pay shitload of money for him. And somebody like a bit like when Pochettino went to Southampton, and then we ended up going and getting him. It would be something along the lines of that. But I think as a long-term project manager, he would be brilliant. But I don't think we've got the patience for that. And I think that winning, let's say, we win the Europa League, our aspirations will be much higher
Yep.
than that. So who we go for, I have absolutely no idea.
Yeah, it all hangs in the balance on Wednesday. I think if we lose on Wednesday, Ange goes and he looks more of a long-term manager. I personally think if we lose on Wednesday, Marco Silva will be the next Tottenham manager. Personally, that because he's unsettled at Fulham. There's been lots of rumours about him being unsettled, and I think it will be Marco Silva.
Well, I'm not really sure what happened there. So that was Dave dropped a bombshell about Marco Silva being the next manager, and then he just left. Here he comes. He's back. He's back. Dave, hello. You're on mute now.
There we go. I don't know what happened then. Sorry. Yeah, no, I was saying I think that if we lose on Wednesday, Marco Silva comes in the summer. If we win on Wednesday, Ange gets next year.
Who do you personally want?
What, as manager?
Yeah.
Poch. I know everyone talks about, you never go back and blah, 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 blah. That man, as a manager, understands our club better than any other manager I've ever known. And I've seen at this club. He understands. Yeah, and everyone can say he got lucky with Kane and blah, 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 and whatever else. But, you look at him plucking out Dele Alli, and you look at him, the way he worked the team and built the team. And he was he had his hands tied behind his back by Levy the whole time. We went 3 windows without a signing. You see what I mean?
Imagine the likes of Lucas Bergvall, Archie Gray,
mate,
those
could you imagine?
With Pochettino, yeah.
Yeah, and so I want Pochettino. So if it means keeping Ange for a season, and I have turned my back on Ange in a way because it hasn't been good enough. But I have said, Ronnie, I've said the same thing. I did say that personally, in my opinion, Xavi's a great shout, but is Xavi going to get what he wants? Is Levy going to give Xavi all he wants? Managers don't look at Tottenham like that because they know that the chairman is not going to give them everything.
Yeah, Xavi's not somebody that I've obviously I know him from when he was a player, but I mean he isn't somebody that I've seen a lot of his sides play football. Do you know what I mean? I don't really know too much about how he likes to play, how he likes to set up. The one thing I don't want, the one thing I don't want is, and I'm putting it out there, a Nuno style manager, a Conte style manager, a Mourinho style manager. I don't want to go back to this turgid, boring football. If I was a Nottingham Forest fan, I'd be over the moon, right? But if I was a Spurs fan and we got to that point, I would just be bored. I'm just bored of that time. I'm bored of Ange at the moment, and I never thought I'd say this, right? I'm bored of it because I just want to see exciting football. And I don't mind if we lose a few games. I don't mind if we win a few games, but I just want to see us play proper football. Simply Acer says Glasner for us. But do you
I
see
said Glasner. I
leaving
said
Palace
Glasner.
after
I
he wins
said
the FA
Glasner,
Cup?
but him and Eze aren't going anywhere now. No way. There's absolutely no chance of either of them going anywhere.
Well, whoever it was that mentioned it when Ben was on, and we were doing the Liverpool chat, and they said, I think it might have been you, and you said about Pochettino and then Harry Kane. It would make sense. Harry's gone and he's won his trophy.
Yeah, it was me.
Bring him back, get Poch back. Happy days, we're all back together. But what would be so funny? And I will laugh and I'll laugh and I'll laugh and I'll laugh if we win on Wednesday night, that Harry Kane has left to win a trophy. He finally wins one, and then Spurs.
We win one the same year. The same year we win one. Oh God! And it's a better one than he's won.
Yeah.
That German league is not the right. Tottenham would have lifted the European trophy, and he gets a German league title. I don't know if they won any cups or anything, but it's a fascinating one. But I'm nervous about Wednesday. I'm not gonna lie. I am extremely nervous.
I'm getting that excitement feeling, and the thing is I think I'm more nervous because I've been so loud and so adamant on social. Not that many people see me, but I've said and I've said and I've said when Ange wins the Europa League for weeks now. I reckon about 2 months ago.
Yeah, it's been a couple of months you said that.
And I only ever use the word when because I like to. It's like affirmations, right? I just think if you say it and you say it and you say it, it can happen. But the one thing that made me really believe was listening to his team talk after the Bodo Glimt game. And I just think that he understands what it means for us fans to win. Do you know what I mean? He knows how much we just crave and want it. The one thing I hope we don't do is do what some people are already doing, which is already dismiss it because of what's happening in the league. Already dismiss it because the opposition isn't as good as it used to be. Teams don't drop in to the Europa League anymore. All those types of things that I'm already seeing on socials. This could be a massive, massive night for us as a football club. And how often have we said, have you said, have I said, I just want to win a trophy. I want to see my team lift a trophy, and we could have that.
And like I said to you, if Tottenham get the Europa League, you're looking at Newcastle winning the League Cup, first trophy in donkey's years. Palace winning their first ever major trophy. Tottenham, it's like 3 teams, the underdogs breaking that trophy drought. It's one of those seasons, isn't it?
Yeah. And look, I don't care what anybody says about where Ange has been before and the level of opposition and so on. He has won trophies everywhere he has been. He knows what it takes to get to a cup final and win. Now we just have to believe that he's going to get it right on Wednesday. But I wanted to speak to you about that because we mentioned obviously that he's changed his tactics in the Europa League, and it seems to be from my side of things. We don't have Wes to kind of verify this, but it's been a bit more long ball. So we're pumping the ball up to Solanke, who's kind of turned into a bit more of a target player. But then what we're doing is we're pressing on the so when let's say they win a header from a defensive header, we're then pressing to win the second ball. Yeah. And so we're trying to win the ball higher up the pitch. Do you think we'll see a very similar outlook on Wednesday night?
100%. 100%. I think that when you look at United midfield of Ugarte, that you put pressure on those players, they make mistakes. It's the same as us. It's one of those. It's a dicey game because both clubs have mistakes in them. So I don't think he'll change that in any way. I think it'll be exactly the same. It'll be Solanke the hold up play, and then he'll want to bring the wingers in and things like that. It reminds me of like when we had Llorente, the same sort of thing. The last goal we scored against Ajax, long ball up top, looking for the header down, and then the movement from that. So I think it'll be more of a case of more of the same. But you never know, mate. It's Ange. You never know. We could play 5 strikers. He'd be like, right, go for it, lads. You know what I mean? So,
do you know what? That's one thing I do respect him for, because do you remember Antonio Conte? We played AC Milan Champions League, and we lost the first leg 1-0, then we drew the second leg 0-0, I believe, and we had to get something out of that game. And at no point would he go
Go for it.
different, go away from what he wanted. At least if we're losing 1-0 in the 80th minute, and just putting 3 or 4 strikers on,
Yeah,
and
he's
just
going to try
putting
the kitchen
players
sink
on
at
to
it.
score goals because
Well, he knows full well that we lose, he's gone. And if he wants any hope of keeping his job, he's going to do everything he can to make sure that he wins. So if we are losing 1-0, I generally think he will throw the kitchen sink at it. I really do.
Yeah.
And like I said to you, I've got nothing against him as a man. I wanted him at Tottenham, but it's just sad that it's how horribly wrong it's gone. But this could be the silver lining, especially for him, because even if he does leave, he's going to leave Tottenham saying, well, you know what? It didn't go well, didn't go great, but look what I did for the club.
Yeah. It's crazy, really, because, he could put himself, and I use this word lightly, but it's a reality, in like one of the worst managers in Spurs history in the league, but probably one of the best managers in terms of the fact there's only 2 other people that have won European silverware, and the last time was 41 years ago. You cannot deny, regardless of whether, I'm reading this comment here from Simply Ace that says, I think the Europa League this season is weaker, with all the Champions League teams just dropping down. Just my opinion. We can talk about all these things, but statistically, he will become the 3rd manager ever
Win a European
to win
Cup.
a European title, and that's massive. That is absolutely massive for us.
Simply Ace is spot on. Simply Ace is that bottom comment, because that's when I turned on Ange. Exactly the same time up to the Ipswich game, wasn't it?
After Ipswich, I was in until November, up to Ipswich game, then gave up 5 Premier League wins in 6 months. Yeah, look, I do get that. I do get that. And there's, since the players, during the injury crisis, I did say, we need to kind of wait, and we need to wait and see what happens. But since then, we have done just as badly. My only thoughts on this is that they've thrown the league. He's thrown the league a long time ago, but it just seems a bit bizarre, doesn't it, to do that? Because we don't seem to have done anything in the league. We don't seem to be.
And Ange's character, mate, that will hurt him.
Yeah.
That'll hurt. Like the type of manager he is and the type of man he is, that will hurt him. But like I said to you, he won't be happy with what's going on. But if he can bring us glory, it means that he can leave with his head high and say, I've done something that no one else has managed to do. You look at all the managers that, we lost to NS Mura. Their manager was in prison at the time, in a European Cup. We never managed to get over the line or get to that. If he can actually get us over the line, then fair play to him. But I personally think it should be a golden handshake. I think we should pay the money for Poch, no matter what it is, or I think we should strike a deal where we say, you know what, you can still manage the World Cup. Personally, in my eyes, but just look at that comment from David.
Hi from Leicester. No creativity, so I want long ball, Richarlison and Solanke. Shithousery physical presence, and let Johnson and Son to pick up the pieces. Now, it's interesting you mention this, because that's something we haven't mentioned in today's show, which is, the fact that we do have a mini injury crisis going on, but only in terms of like attacking midfield options. So obviously no Kulusevski, no Maddison, and no Lucas Bergvall. So who plays in that position behind the striker? I would assume it'd be Dominic Solanke that plays in that position. Who do we play, or who do you want to play behind that? There's been talk of Pape Sarr playing that position, or do you move a Bentancur type player up for his creativity and leave Pape Sarr for the legs to help assist, in case we get caught out in the break, or which I've seen some people say, do you put Solanke in that position and have Richarlison further forward, or either or?
You've got to have somebody who's technically good on the ball. That's the thing. Somebody who can play that killer pass. And Kulu getting injured is a curse. It's horrific. I personally think he'll play Son there. That's my gut feeling. I think it'll be someone like of that ilk. But you have to have they have to have that ability to be able to receive the ball and on the turn to create chances. But he is spot on. I think more of a case of getting the ball up to Solanke to hold the ball up and bring wingers into play. Personally, I wouldn't put anyone there. I would have two. I'd have Basuma and Bentancur in the middle. Bentancur could pull the strings from where, from like a deeper lying position. And then you do get the ball up to Solanke, who can bring other people into play with his physical presence, with his strength. And then you have the wingers as such, and then the fullbacks pushing on as well. And that's where you create an overload.
The other thing I just thought of then was that you play Solanke in that 10 position as a target forward, or you play 2 strikers, right? But then he drops back to pick the ball up, and then what you have is you have Tell playing alongside him, making runs behind him.
Yeah,
So it could
off
be
him.
for
Yeah,
Play could
yeah.
be for Romero's balls over the top. The one thing, by the way, just thinking about Romero balls over the top is how fast is. I mean, okay, we're not playing amazing opposition, but I've thought Dominic Solanke looked so quick recently.
Yeah, well, they United have got injury problems of their own, mate. They've lost a lick. I think Euro went off injured. So they're not all fit themselves. So who have they got that will play centre back? Harry Maguire, he's not the quickest. It's got to be somebody. If you can get somebody on a turn of pace against them, Harry Maguire is physical. So does Ange look at that and go, okay, well they've got physical presence, so we look to play her through the lines instead, play them on the turn. There's so many different variables. And simply, Ace, if we get Southgate, I'm not doing this pod next year.
Yeah. So those listening, someone in the comments said, "I have a feeling we get Gareth Southgate." So that would be absolutely awful, wouldn't it? I mean, that's wild. David Clark said, after getting to the quarterfinals of the Europa League, Ange should have used his Europa League tactics in the remaining Premier League games to get the players moulded into this tactic. So I don't disagree at all. I think David Clark, in the weeks that you've been coming on this show and commenting, I think this is probably the most sensible thing I've ever seen, and I respect you for that because I think you're 100% right.
We've said that. We have said that.
Why? It's just bizarre that he doesn't, and I don't really understand it. Like, I can't get my head around why. Clearly, it works. Why you wouldn't also get? Because what annoys me is that he rests players, and the other players came in on Friday night. Not one of them, I thought, played a half decent game.
No,
These are players who we're getting so many injuries at the moment. At any moment, a player who could be injured in training, and you could be asked to step up and come into that squad. And I would say the only player was Kevin Danso. I think he's been pretty decent.
Solid,
and I will make a statement that if Romero goes in the summer, I wouldn't have an issue with him playing alongside Van de Beek. But yeah, why do you think that is, mate? Oh, he's gone again. Oh dear Lord. When he comes back, we will discuss that. But let me know in the chat, because a few of you here now. Let me know where you're going to be watching the game on Wednesday night. Are any of you going to the stadium? Are you watching at home? Let me know. Is anyone going to Bilbao as well? That's what I want to know. Because apparently, our good friend Winnie is off to Bilbao this week.
Yeah.
So apparently got tickets in the UEFA ballot. Apparently, so we'll see. I'll ask him, see if he can send us a photo. But yeah, so why is it, Dave, that the players who come in to these squads have not stepped up?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because but they haven't stepped up all season, mate.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem is they haven't stepped up all season. So for me personally, I think that it's more of a case of, I think some of them have given up on Ange, and they know he's going, if that makes sense, or because of how bad things are, so they're just like, well, fuck it, let's just get through. I probably won't play in the Europa League final anyway, so but I don't know, mate. I don't know. Tottenham have this mysterious mindset issue with certain players when you think that they're going to step up, and for me, I'd be wanting to give it absolutely everything, chasing every lost ball, because I'm thinking I've got a chance to play in a European final here. If someone drops out injured, the only players that I would say have come in and that I've been impressed with, it has been Jed Spence when he's had to come in, Danso when he's had to come in. But you look at other players that even Odebear, for example, hasn't done much since when he's had to come in. Richarlison's done nothing. So it's an interesting predicament and scenario. I saw a video of training the other day, Region taking out Johnson, taking out Johnson. I was like, there's his Man United spy, isn't he, from his loan spell there. But no, I don't know, mate. It's like I said, I think it's a mentality issue with Tottenham. It always has been. But hopefully, if we get through Wednesday, then that can start to look to change.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I was just trying to get rid of that stupid comment that's in there from Twitch, but I have no idea how you do anything on Twitch. So we'll have to just leave it. Yeah, I think this is an interesting comment and not helpful in the slightest. I mean, I know we're not playing the game, but this is a comment from Simply Ace saying, "I don't think we have the bottle to win the Europa League, so it's over to Ange and the boys to prove me wrong and stick two fingers up to me." We need to be positive, right? And I get we're Spurs fans, right? But every single one of us, including the people there, at home,
Energy
on
spreads.
social
Energy
media.
spreads.
Exactly.
Everybody is. You look at or listen to all the pundits on the radio and talk sport. They're all writing off Tottenham. They're all saying they haven't, they won't get it done. It's United. I was talking to people today. They're all saying the same thing. I can't see them winning. It's Tottenham. Blah 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 blah. You are right. It is up to the club to prove us wrong, because we have been through this quite a lot, and there has to come a point where it goes in our favour. The Champions League final we should have won. I thought we had better chances. I thought we weren't clinical enough. I really hope we win, because that Spursy tag is something that I don't like. But you've got to try and eradicate that mentality, and a lot of that mentality does come from us fans. The nervousness, the angst of when we're trying to see out games. The energy does come from us as fans. So I think all fans should be positive. Get behind the team as much as you can. Get behind Ange as much as you can, no matter what's going on in the Premier League season, and show that we are Tottenham through and through. Tottenham's our blood. You know what I mean? We all go through it. Supporting Tottenham is like having bipolar. Let's take the highs when they're there. This could be a massive high. Let's all get behind that.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree. And that's the comment I just read out. So David Clark said, if Spurs are winning in the second half and United push Maguire up front, then I want Danzo brought on, but keep our two strikers on, because United will pump balls high into our box, Maguire, Casemiro.
That's where I think Ange's tactics could play in our favour. Because if they do stick Maguire up front, they do start pumping balls into the box, then this is where Ange, because he likes us to keep the ball and play the ball, that's where you could catch them out, and then go and get. If we are winning 1-0, go and get a second.
Yeah, this is a really interesting one. And David Clark said, with our first choice back five playing together, our results are played 20, won 15, drawn 2, lost 3. Therefore, it gives us some hope in the final. Look, I didn't know that. That's a brilliant stat.
That's a really good stat, actually.
And it's crazy, really, to think about how many games we've lost this season, and yet when our first choice back five are played together,
the key is Van de Ven, mate. He is the key, because of the way Ange plays. He is the key to it all. Romero is great, and losing him is difficult. Udogie's, losing him is difficult. Porro, etc. But when you lose Van de Ven, you lose such a big part of the way we play. That really high line, that high press, that wanting to, get after every ball. Because one long ball over the top, we've got nobody who's got that pace to get back and make that recovery challenge. We have to keep him fit. Wrap him in cotton wool to the final. That's what I'll be doing personally.
Yeah. The last thing you want, though, is him to be cold and pull a hammy in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, imagine 5 minutes in.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, because he is so crucial to us. Luckily, I don't see that many pacey, players that Manchester United have, compared to some clubs that can really hurt us. Kind of
Ahmad.
Is he fit at the moment?
He's fit now.
Yeah, that could be an interesting one, and a good race if we do get to see it. I just hope that we see the best version of Spurs, and we push on, and we're all sat here next week talking about Spurs being.
Do you know what? And I've been saying this all week. Even if we lose the game, I want to feel proud of everything we gave in that game. To know that we did everything we could. We gave it absolutely everything, left it all out there, and then you can say, okay, look, it just didn't go our way, but we gave it everything we had. But, I like I said to you, for me, it's, I just hope we bloody win, mate.
So no, mate. Mate, so do I, because all I know is what's going to happen is I'm going to see that stupid, it's all about the Tottenham, or it's the way of the Tottenham, or whatever that stupid meme is. And it's just, it's just going to give people another stick to beat us with,
Yeah.
And it's not going to be helpful if we lose. It's not going to be helpful. People, say, oh, yeah, it'd be great because Ange gone. But it's not going to be helpful, right? The manager will go. It then puts us in a terrible position. We have to start all over again. We did finish 17th in the league, and it's just such a bad way. At least this way, we can come away with this season with something. And at least we have a manager who I believe can stand there in that dressing room and deliver the kind of team talk that these players need. And we'll see in the first 5 minutes. We'll see if they're up for it in the first 5 minutes. And hopefully, I'd say we're on here next week and we're discussing Spurs being Europa League champions.
Yeah, that's what we all want, mate. And Spurs being Europa League champions, and me being Score Predictor champion.
Yeah, exactly. Talking about that, which is really interesting, let's quickly do our Brighton score predictions for this week. I was going to do a whole chat about Brighton so that we at least had some clips to put on social media, but unfortunately, I really don't care about the league anymore. So let's
No.
just go straight into score predictions. It is the last score predictions of the season when we talk about the Brighton game. It is at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And oh, by the way, everyone, I'm so glad we didn't just sell our naming rights to anyone because did you see the Everton naming rights this season, this week?
No.
So it's now going to be called the Hill Dickinson Stadium.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And I mean,
Oh, Jesus Christ.
if there isn't a joke in there somewhere, then, you know, I don't know where there's going to be a joke because the Hill Dickinson Stadium, there's already been, I've seen a meme of Harry Hill and David Dickinson with Everton scarves. But apparently it's a local law firm or something that have now got offices all over the world. So fair play to them for sponsoring the stadium because I bet that cost a pretty penny. But yeah, too funny. That's why you don't sell your soul for a few quid. So let's talk about score predictions. It will be at home, so I will let you all know what my predictions were because I wrote them down before the game. I've gone, as always, for a Spurs win. I've gone 2-1 home win to Spurs. I mean, I've got nothing to play for, so it doesn't really matter.
I'm going after Winnie's gone, mate. After the Will's gone.
Fine. So Winnie, Wes, and Callum will all have their scores predicted by the wheel. So I'll just bring up the wheel now. We can go into it.
Well, if Winnie gets some realistic score, I'm going to be fuming.
Yeah, don't forget to get your scores in as well. We'll just bring in the wheel now. So here we go. Let's spin the wheel first of all for Winnie. So here we go. The wheel is now spinning. He has got.
Oh, go on. Has he got a 5-4?
5-4 Spurs. David licking his lips. Yeah. Do you want to go next, Dave?
Yeah, I'll go then. A lot of it does depend on Wednesday. But I'm going for a bore draw, man. I'm going for a 1-1.
I was contemplating a draw, to be fair. As you say, it depends. If we go and win, doesn't matter.
Actually, yeah, no. Do you know what? It's the last game of the season. I've got to back Tottenham. I have to. It's the last game of the season. I've got to back Tottenham.
Final.
Yeah, I've got to back Tottenham. The last game of the season. I can't not. It's at home. So go 2-1 Tottenham. Sod it.
Oh, same as me. 2-1 Spurs. And same as David Clark. He's also gone for 2-1 Spurs. Right. Wes up next, and he gets the wheel because no predictions were in.
He's got 5-3, isn't he?
He got 3-2 Spurs. Okay. Let's get that one in. And lastly, we'll spin the wheel for Callum and see what he gets.
Oh, got a 4-3 Brighton.
4-3 Brighton, which actually could be a correct score, knowing what Spurs are like.
Yeah, I've got to back Spurs last game of the season. I can't not.
Yeah, last game in front of the fans. You'd hope that they'll do something. But as you say, it depends on what happens on Wednesday night. Wednesday dad Stephen has said 2-1 Spurs. So he's also gone for a Spurs home win last game of the season. I suppose they'll probably be there. So going into the last game of the season, of course, the ever positive Ronnie has gone for 2-1 Brighton. Of course, to be honest, I wouldn't suspect anything less of you, Ronnie. To be fair, but going to the last game of the season, the score predictor table sits like this: Winnie on 19, Dave on 19, and Wes on 16. Callum's on 9. I'm on 8. So nothing that me and Callum can do. But what's interesting is that Winnie, Dave, and Wes all went for a Spurs win. So Spurs win. What that means is that one of you has to get a correct score. Otherwise, Dave will win by default. Because, Winnie, I don't know when the last time Winnie was on. So if Wes gets a correct score, it's a 3-way tie at the top, and he probably wins on default. or there's a playoff between Wes and Dave. I'll have to figure it all out, to be fair. It all could be absolutely shambolic, or it could be absolutely incredible. Talking about shambolic or incredible, before we finish, did you hear about the French League last night, or whatever it was?
No.
Last game of the season. So let me try and get this right. Le Havre needed a point to stay up, and the other team, whoever they were playing, were going to get relegated. Strasbourg needed a win to get European football, or something like that, right? In the last minute of the game, apparently the ref blew the whistle. This is what I read on social media. So the ref blows the whistle, and the fans start to leave the stadium. In the other ground, because it was obviously a relegation battle at the same time, they thought they were staying up because they'd heard that Le Havre had lost 2-1. And then it was a Manchester United VAR after the final whistle decision type thing, where he goes to VAR after the final whistle, gives Le Havre a penalty, which the guy Panenkas and scores. So they stay up on goal difference or some points or something like that, and the team who were already celebrating staying up then got relegated, and the team that Le Havre were playing didn't get European football.
That's mental. I love a story like that, mate. I'm gonna have to listen to Trans Europe Express and Talk Sport because they'll talk all about that. But yeah, that's absolutely bonkers, isn't it?
Yeah, you'll have to try and look. I was watching a video on TikTok earlier and I heard all about it. So yeah, have a little look and see, because apparently it was absolutely insane. But look, that kind of wraps us up for today. I want to thank everybody that's tuned into us so far this season and also in today's show. All we can say is, I hope we come back next Sunday and we're talking about Spurs being Europa League champions. But good luck to everybody going out to Bilbao. Good luck to everybody going to the stadium to watch the game. Stay safe, look after each other. Dave, how can everybody find you?
At Park Lane Pod, Dave, on Twitter, or X as they call it, or at Park Lane Pod. Don't forget to like and subscribe to all the socials. Just a quick one on the podcast league. So yes, there was a question about whether the winner still gets money. Yes, they do. As soon as the league is complete, then what I'll do is I'll put out a tweet, and again, same rules apply. You'll have 48 hours to come back to me. If not, it'll be passed on to second, third, fourth, etc. Hopefully, it gets all the way down to the bottom where I am.
Yeah, amazing. That's brilliant. And yeah, if you want to follow me, you can, Luke_Park Lane. But more importantly, as Dave said, make sure you're following the podcast on all social media. All you've got to do is search Park Lane Podcast or Park Lane Pod on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Twitch, wherever you want and wherever you find YouTube, obviously. Wherever you find your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Music, everywhere. Go and search Park Lane Podcast and you'll find us. By the way, people that listen on Spotify are absolutely unbelievable. By the way, we don't get that many listeners, but those that do listen pretty much the entire show. So I want to thank everybody that listens on there. It's absolutely brilliant. It's great to see. But as I said, we'll see you next Sunday, where we'll talk all about Spurs being Europa League champions. Fingers crossed. But until next time, a massive come on, you Spurs. Come on,
Spurs.